Hello, everyone. At the beginning of this year, January 2024, David Schwartz, aka Joel Katz, the architect of the XRPL, posted a cryptic tweet in regards to a particular symbol. Now, this one has been bothering me for quite some time. I'm unlike a lot of people. You know, I try to make sense of things. But I decided to finally complete my own particular research that I've been working on for quite some time in regards to this. So, shout out to all you guys that are fully aware of this, and if anything, have been running against a brick wall every opportunity when it comes to getting an answer. I, to the best of my ability, have tried to make sense of this. So, if anything, let's dive deep into this and the meaning of it. Is it anything? Does it truly matter? For me, the answer is yes. And the reason why it matters so much is understanding how far XRP really goes back with Ripple. We're talking all the way back to the late 80s, early 90s because of David Schwartz. Smash like if you haven't done so already. Understand the fundamental building blocks of Ripple XRP and why it really truly matters. Is there some things that are being hidden from us by the elites of the world and so on? Is that just conspiracy theory, or is that a real thing? So consider sticking to the end of the outline if you choose to do so, but there are chapters for each and every one of you. Let's dive into the material. Starting things off, you're going to see right here this reference of what I'm talking about, just in case you're new to all this. And as you see on screen, Ripple CTO's cryptic tweet basically sparks widespread speculation in XRP community. Well, what is it? It's this symbol here that you see on the screen. What is that? Looks like a bendy arrow and an L. Well, don't forget that because we're going to get into why all this is being presented to you. Number one, as I take you over down the rabbit hole, if you will, Ripple posted this 6 years ago, and it was reshared on Reddit. David Schwartz sure has been at it for quite some time. Patent number 5025369. This guy and his incredible mind way before Satoshi Nakamoto. Well, if anything, keep in mind that even Satoshi might even have David Schwartz beat, and there's been a lot of speculation between who knows what and so on. I won't go down too deep into that, but it's worth pointing out some key things before the Bitcoin white paper. So we are talking about David Schwartz. We are talking about Ripple's XRP, but there's some citations, this time dating back to August 16th of 2018. This is from nextweb.com. Ripple CTO invented a distributed computer system 20 years before blockchain. Ask him about it. That's interesting. Like it says, before there was Satoshi Nakamoto, there was, of course, David Schwartz. More importantly, it's understanding some of these key things. And I thought I'd get into some of the origin stories for you guys, like it says on the screen. One of the main problems Schwartz, whose background is in cryptography, was trying to solve was how to distribute computing intensive tasks that would have been otherwise impossible to process by a single machine to a network of devices. More importantly, what is the reference? Well, it's a citation from patents.google.com, and as you see, it is that particular patent, the 5025369A. Inventor David J. Schwartz. Current assignee is Wintershall, DEA Deutschland AG, and then you see David Schwartz Enterprises Inc. As you go back into it, what do you see? Well, specifically speaking, you see that there's some key things here. But why is it so important? And if anything, why even bring it to you guys? Because at the end of the day, does this even matter at all? Well, I want you guys to keep in mind that I think it does matter. And again, we're going to get into the bigger picture of things because sometimes we get some updates, and more in particular, how do we connect it all? Well, 1988 is when it was originally applied for, and of course, it was published in June of the 18th, I should say, 1991. As we get more further into it, you'll see here some interesting things posted. This from David Schwartz. He says, "You think it's particularly hard for the NSA or the government of China to do a 51% attack on Bitcoin? All it takes is money, and they could short Bitcoin to cover some of those costs." This was cited originally from April 26th of 2018. But as you get more into it, you will see here that even so in the background is that David Schwartz did in fact have a robust rap sheet of where he worked at, but he, as we know, developed encrypted cloud storage and enterprise messaging systems for organizations like CNN and even the NSA, National Security Agency. And known as Joel Katz, he is a respected voice, of course, in the digital currency community. Now, this part about messaging systems, I mean, come on. You know, how many times do you hear about messaging systems in regards to Swift? How many times do you see, posts all the time, literally daily, about ISO 222 messaging systems? So the guy gets it, probably long before everybody else. As we get further into this outline, you'll see even from this post of CryptoTimes.io, it says specifically that the central concern is that unchecked AI might lead to unexpected outcomes. The IEEE spectrum, which I've cited numerous times in my Jasmy outlines, piece subtly hints at this view, indicating a need for balanced AI development. Schwartz advocacy is a call for inclusive adoption, I should say, and responsibility in AI development. As this debate continues, his insights contribute significantly to shaping a future where AI is a tool for collective progress rather than an exclusive privilege. And again, back to his cryptic tweet. Again, some people want to know about this. And more importantly, like, why does it really matter? Does it get more into the whole concept of the Angzarr? That's what's referred to. It's a name of a ghost character, like Unicode symbol. It's known or unknown origin and unknown meaning, basically. It was added to Unicode 3.2, but the symbol has been present in works prior to its release. The name is from an abbreviation of its ISO 9573-13 name. Again, back to the whole thing about messaging standards and so on, right? Or more importantly, ISO standards. So it's an angle with down zigzag arrow, and some of you guys might not even care about this. But what got really interesting for me is when I got more into this, and again, the whole thing about Unicode. Because if you were to nerd it out yourself and take the deep dive, Unicode was formerly known as the Unicode Standard, and it was a text encoding standard maintained by the Unicode Consortium. But basically, it was designed to support the use case of text in all the world's writing systems. Again, all of it that can be digitized. And if anything, when you get more even into this, what was preceding it? Well, it's ISO IEC 8859, and that really caught my attention. Because, if anything, when you open up this, well, you see that ISO IEC 8859 is a joint ISO and IEC series of standards for 8-bit character encodings. Now, I know I'm getting a little bit too nerdy in this, but you got to keep in mind that when you get further even into this, it opens up other particular things. Because, as we also know, we have what they call type settings, and basically it's these extensions of this thing called ASC2. I don't want to lose you guys, but if anything, it gets really interesting because, when I was talking about Jasmy, for instance, well, Jasmy recently got a ISO IEC 27001 certification. That's a real thing. You can look it up. I'm not the only one that reported on that. But here's where it gets really interesting in regards to this rabbit hole. Because if you go to text.stackexchange.com, there was a question that was brought up, and I won't get into all the weeds dating back many years of this. I've already taken the liberty of going way too far down the rabbit hole into this myself. But there was an answer that was posted, I think about roughly a couple of years ago, and it says that the symbol was adopted from the existing ISO 9573 standard, which defined entities for the use of SGML. Now, you may be wondering, what is that? Well, as we get into even that, SGML is a standard generalized markup language, and basically it's an international standard for the definition of markup languages. That is, it is a meta language. Now, this really raise my eyebrows, to say the least. Because when I think of meta, I think of like the metaverse. And if anything, I said, where are the origins of even that? Well, look at this. Snow Crash, 1992, is at least credited to my knowledge. I could be wrong on here. Again, I'm just citing stuff from what I see. The term, if you were not aware of metaverse, was coined in Neil Stephenson's 1992 science fiction novel Snow Crash, where humans, as programmable avatars, interact with each other and software agents in a three-dimensional virtual space that uses the metaphor of the real world. Stephenson used the term to describe virtual reality-based successor to the internet. That's incredibly interesting. But more importantly, to get further into it, you will see here that Neil Stephenson's metaverse appears to his users in an urban environment developed along a 100-meter wide road called the Street, which spans the entire 65,536 kilometers circumference of a featureless black, perfectly spherical planet. The virtual real estate is owned by Global Multimedia Protocol Group, a fictional part of the Real Association for Computing Machinery, and is available to be bought and buildings developed thereupon. So me going down the rabbit hole of the whole thing of the metaverse, yeah, you can see how that panned out. That is literally the definition. But dating back to 92, and more importantly, some of these statements from Mr. David Schwartz back in 91, I mean, whoa. Well, a little bit more about this, because even when we went further into this whole thing of IEC, in that answer, it brought up the whole thing of 9573. Well, why even bother with it? Well, basically, the reason why is because when I got further into it, I said to myself, well, I want to know more about some of these particular records, some of these special characters and so on. And again, back to the whole concept, and maybe people think this is controversial or conspiracy theory. I'm really not trying to do that. But you ever notice that a lot of things are hidden from us? Why? Because even when I went more into the rabbit hole, this guy named John says all of the, or references this, all of the monotype records relating to special characters have now been removed from the type archive site at Stockwell. The documents were basically palleted for transfer to the National Collection Center at Roten, excuse me, several months ago. Well, again, if that's several months ago, that's back in 2023, so roughly a year and a half ago, and are completely inaccessible. Why are they inaccessible? The pallets will be stored in climate control conditions at their new home, but he cannot imagine that it could be easy to gain access, since this would involve a forklift truck and considerable manpower. If somebody want it bad enough, I guess they could get it. But again, why am I even bringing this to you guys? Well, this person had an answer to some people that watch another particular video. You're welcome to watch that video. I don't want to play it on here because I'll hit with a copyright. But there is a YouTube video about the particular anchor, and this person points out something in regards to that video, and it says the information in the video is inaccurate. It fails to recognize that the inclusion of the character in Stick's collection was based on its presence in a version of ISO 9573-13 earlier than 1991 version cited. Okay, interesting. So again, back to David Schwartz. And again, as we get more into it, ISO standards get brought up again, and more in particular, again, the whole thing of the Angzarr symbol. So here's that person that we were referencing, John. He's a PhD student over at University of Pennsylvania. University of Pennsylvania is part of the Ivy League schools. And what it says here is that ISO standards site tells him, or tells us, that TR 9573-13 was responsibility of Subcommittee 34 under Joint Technical Committee JTC1 of ISO EEC. I know it's a little bit more technical, but hear me out. A fortuitous research led to a historical account of JTC1 SC34, originally compiled by James David Mason, who was vice chairman of SC34. Listen to this, it gets good. Because originally compiled by James David Mason, who was vice chairman of SC34, given the age of the document, he doubted the email address listed for him was up to date, but eventually found him on LinkedIn. And this guy, wow, you're going to see some things that really is extremely interesting, in my opinion, because he's the co-chairman of this thing called Bosselage Conference. And as I got more into this myself, I decided, all right, well, why is that important? Well, it leads to the next thing, because from the historical account of it all, Mason himself, he was part of a working group, and that was responsible for this other thing, ISO 8879, and of course the SGML standard, as well as basically, all this stuff with 9573. But again, here's the thing. The main people working on this was Charles Goldfarb, the inventor of SGML, and Anders Berglund, who was responsible for TR9573. Now, you may be wondering, Max, like, you better get with it, bro, because you're losing me and I don't understand all this technical stuff. Okay, look at this. This gets extremely interesting because when you go to the citation about this, even from Wikipedia, again, what do you see? This guy, born in 1939, is known as the father of standard generalized markup language SGML and the grandfather HTML. Everybody knows about HTML. They should. And look what it says. In the World Wide Web, also referred to as WWW. Yeah, World Wide Web. Or Web 3, W3, I should say Web 3. Or the World Wide Web. He co-invented the concept of what markup languages. And look at this. Look at more about his background. Charles Goldfarb was leading a small team from IBM, dating back to 1969, developed the first markup language called Generalized Markup Language, or GML, and basically speaking, the rest is history. Okay? Well, what else? Well, there's another particular gentleman mentioned, and it opens up this. And boy, oh boy, does the rabbit hole open up. Man, does it ever open up. And if anything, I realize maybe this outline's not for everybody, but that's okay. Because I do this sometimes. Because I've done another deep dive about the whole thing of the deep connections of, Ripple XRP dating back to the early 90s. And that particular video was banned from YouTube. It's only available on X, by the way, because of copyright. So here's the thing. You could call it part 2 of that or whatever. But some things mentioned on the screen, like the XBRL, as we know, the Ripple XRP has XRPL. And they're totally two different things. But the thing I want to bring up to you guys is some of these statements that are really, really going to open up your wide-eyed, There's that movie Wise Eyes Shut. Well, this is Eyes Wide Open. Look at this. Information in an enterprise. This citation that links these two gentlemen, okay, the second particular one. And man, oh man, it talks about one of the most valuable assets, and again, it says assets. This is an old document, very, very old. In an enterprise, is information. Traditionally, the focus was on data stored in classical databases. And for example, you have data that was typically financial data, personal data, and similar. More and more people have come to realize that the vital data is much broader, includes a large amount of text data. The amount of this kind of data is also typically much larger. To make optimum use of this additional data has a set of challenges that include ensuring that a planning for reuse, repurposing, and integration of this data with all other kinds of data in the enterprise is carefully thought out. And look what it also mentions. In many cases, the same information fragments is reused in a multiple of contexts. For example, annual report, marketing material. But basically speaking, to go on to mention things that we even know about today. How many times have you heard about the modeling data and also the use of open standards? I mean, how many times have we seen references, even Gilbert Verdian talking about open standards? So this guy that you saw from the previous citation, Anders Berglund of ALB Consults, is a leader in the development of many of the open standards in this area. So again, that really caught my attention because, again, workflows and data schemes and just on and on and on. And this is, again, from a long time ago, okay? So as I got further into this, I said to myself, okay, well, XBRL, look what it says. It's a framework based on XML. And we understand these guys, they basically invented some of this stuff. But for creating applications, reporting business data, these applications specifies as taxonomies include schemes as well as a subsidiary information in so-called link bases, labels for human consumption, references to books where data items are defined. And again, it's really interesting because it says the aim is to make business data easy available for interchange and analysis. Think about it. Don't overthink about it, because it goes on to mention currently a lot of data has to be rekeyed. Yeah, in order to be accessible as it is submitted as PDF files, office documents, etc., etc. Numerous regulators, such as the SEC in the US, are starting to require the submission of reports using XBRL. All right, so that's XBRL. And you may be thinking, like, well, I don't get it. You know, Max, like XRPL, XBRL sounds similar, right? Well, keep in mind, here's the thing. The XRPL, as we know, which is Ripple's transaction protocol layer, is a different framework when it comes to comparing to the XBRL. I mean, that's a real thing, obviously. While the XBRL is used for business reporting, the XRPL is, as we know, a distributed ledger technology designed, of course, for real-time payments, currency exchange, and other particular services. But here's the key thing for everybody, and this is a good reference. The XBRL, while it's called the Extensible Business Reporting Language, well, it does have purpose. And listen to this. Business reporting and data exchange. Back to the whole thing of technology, because based on the XML, the extensible markup language, there's key components in regards to all this. Taxonomy is going to get brought up. And schemes, link bases, but it's the use cases. Financial reporting, think about that. Regulatory compliance and data analysis. All right, compare that, for example, to the XRPL. XRPL obviously has 4 key things in regards to purpose, technology, key components, and use cases. But purpose, real-time payments, currency exchange, financial services, again, technology, distributed ledger technology, key components, consensus mechanism, ledger, network of nodes, and cross-border payments, remittances, digital assets. In summary, while the XBRL and XRPL involve the use of technology for business-related purposes, you better believe that they serve fundamentally different functions and are based, of course, on distinct frameworks. But again, interesting catch, if you will, because some people are going to bring that up, and there is some key differences. Let's take you over to here. Because when I take you over to here, I want you guys to understand that a lot of this simply needs to, be brought to your attention. How so? Well, if anything, I am going to share what I'm talking about. So let's pull this up on the screen as well. And as you're also going to see right here, it's all about, again, some key things. And what I want to bring up for you guys is sharing this particular screen. Let's pull that up. As you can see, it's getting into the weeds of this particular scanned document. And what is it? Well, it goes on to mention some key things here that are definitely worth pointing out. And as I zoom in, you will see exactly what I am talking about. So let's pull this up. Right here is that reference to S18209, the particular symbol that David Schwartz is referring to. Now, this seems bizarre. I get that. But as we get more into it, it's, again, understanding some of these key things. So is it just one particular symbol, or is it, again, a couple particular symbols of significance? As I get more into the weeds of this, some people are going to see this and they're going to be like, oh my goodness. Well, it says these sheets should be considered or inserted at the back of the list of mathematical characteristics for a series. And what does it say? Well, it goes on to mention some key terms, and you might be blown away with this when you see some of it. But it says, these sheets should be inserted at the back of the list of mathematical characters for series 569 and 569B, Technical Literature Department, July 1972. Some people, when they say this, like, oh my gosh, XRP 569, pump the brakes on that. It's XRP 589. So we can't say that's a thing. But, some people will be like, well, fast forward 20 years to 1992. Nope, we're talking about 1991. So, yeah, I'm ahead of you when it comes to that, but at least I would show you that. Getting more into this, the reason I want to share something with you guys is then, again, back to the whole thing of this patent. Because in the patent, numerous times you see a brief description of the drawings, and it talks about a block diagram of a cluster computer system. Think about when it comes to Bitcoin, think about how we deal with what? Block sizes? Yes, absolutely. More in particular, how many times does it mention clusters in this hundred and, or I don't know, I mean, many page document? Well, numerous times, because it goes on to even mention a distributed computer system that is a network of computers, and how, basically speaking, each of those have functions independently, but basically will have be used in a cooperative manner with each other with the use of a computer, and basically, it's the assembly of it and how they form, again, clusters, token rings, or all other along the same line, and the use of Ethernet, computer systems, on, right? And it mentions again a few times. Prior art cluster computer system includes between 3 to 6 computers, hardwired together, totally interlinked. And, I mean, this is, again, back in those days. It says no more than 6 computers can be used in any cluster system. And that gets really interesting. And it goes on to a little bit more about this. Consequently, if more than about 6 computers are added to the cluster, each computer is likely to trample on one or more of the other. I mean, again, the technical stuff. But again, it gets interesting because it mentions the invention provides the advantages of a distributed computer system using unlimited distributed processing while not requiring a complex and costly computer program such as required under the prior art cluster system. If you get more into this, like one of the things that I do with my research, and I don't know that this is a BSV, not BSV, this is a Ripple XRP video, but BSV, if you look more into like Mandela, um, the Mandela or Mandela, tomato, where you want to call it, they reference some of these key things. So it's interesting to see David Schwartz, talk about some of these things as well. And you're more than free to research that more if you choose to do so. As I got more into this, check this out, because how does this age? Well, as you can see here, XRP Ledger cluster Ripple servers. If you run multiple Ripple servers in the same data center, you can configure them to cluster to maximize efficiency. This is scaling here, everybody, without even saying it. Okay? That's the concept. That's the significance. Again, look more into it. And as we get more into it, do we have other citations from other sources? Well, back to IEEE. They even talk about an A9 dimensional analysis of gossip sub over the XRP Ledger consensus protocol. And what does it mention? This study focuses on an application in the quorum-based consensus of XRP Ledger. Using data science techniques, we cluster sets of parameters, identify correlations between dimensions, and develop a decision tree for informed parameter selection. Again, that reference back to IEEE with what was referenced in Unicode. Again, is this the cryptic thing that he's referring to, David Schwartz? I don't know. Maybe he just posted it to play with our minds. I don't know about that either, but I thought that was extremely interesting in my own particular analysis of trying to make sense of it all. As we get more into it, XRP Ledger full history cluster, again, back to the concept of clusters, was it say high available, low latency, and geographic routing provided by the XRPLF with support from trusted community members. Filters out transactions sent to verified scam accounts using XRP forensics. Interesting. A lot of talk about forensics lately. In my other videos, I referenced it. Filters out transactions with unnecessary high transaction fee. And seamless node failover without having to reconnect the WebSocket. Worth pointing out. As we get into a little bit more about this, about clustering, like it says, if you're running multiple Ripple servers in a single data center, you can configure those servers into a cluster to maximize efficiency. Guys, why am I sharing this with you? Because understand that there is a lot of different narratives. People are stating that, like, what's his name? Nothing against him. God bless you, brother. Da Vinci Jeremy is like looking at a chart in regards to XRP, and he's very bullish on just Bitcoin. He's like a Bitcoin maxi for the most part. I like the idea that he's into, for example, he recognizes CASPA, which is cool, like the next era of proof of work. But there's other ones other than just proof of work. There's a robust history that people don't realize when it comes to XRP. And that is the significance of why it's worth bringing it to you guys. You know, especially this statement or this research. Cluster servers always propagate transactions throughout the cluster, even if the transaction does not meet the current load-based transaction fee on some of them. Think about that in itself. All right, a little bit more about this. So when we talk about some of this stuff, understand that when we get into the weeds, back to the citation of this patent, David Schwartz mentions that a multi-level computer system is particularly well suited for use in office, corporations, or like wherein a hierarchy of personnel exists. Each user would be provided with a personal computer, which would be coupled to one of the levels of the system. Remember how we talked about scaling? Accordingly, it is an object of the invention to provide an improved distributed computer system. Think about that. We talk about distributed ledger technologies. We won't ever say ledger. Understanding how they went from that concept, right, to get to that concept, you had to have something like this, an improved distributed computer system in which portions of a task rather than the complete task are transferred between computers in processing of the task. And look what it also mentions. Another object of the invention is to provide an improved distributed computer system in which there is a continuous active interconnection between computers. I mean, come on. Again, back to what you saw here. I'm telling you flat out, if you were to get more into this stuff, I know it's the tech stuff, but it all makes sense to me. That Ripple was part of a vision years before everybody else could even fathom it. All right, look at this. This gets really good. Because when we talk about some of this, back to his reference, even from that patent, a multi-level distributed computer system for distributing processing can be used to process tasks by dividing them into multiple portions and distributing them to different levels of the systems. The portions are distributed to the lowest level first and then to the highest levels until the task is complete. And boom, what is cited right underneath that? Distributed ledger technology. Yeah, that matches up. David Schwartz talking about distributed ledger technology before it was even called that, through what? Patents, inventions, so on and so forth. All right, this might be one of the moments you're waiting for. And again, I'm going to connect a little bit more. Because as you can see here, this is definitely worth mentioning. And again, I don't know if a lot of people even did a deep dive about this, but if they did, awesome. You know, I can't view everything. But when I went to ResearchGate, this really, I was like, man, I think this is like the diamond in the rough. This is the needle in the haystack. This is how we decode what David Schwartz was mentioning. And I don't know, maybe this will get out to David Schwartz and maybe he'll recognize it, which would be cool. But if it doesn't happen, that's okay. He's a busy man. God bless him. Look what it says. Application layer. Financial layer. Look at that symbol. Again, back to that symbol of the what, guys? Back to that whole symbol of specifically talking about this darn thing and that, you know, anchor, or whatever you want to call it. Because, again, understand, here it is, and look at that. I mean, man, oh man. You know, and then jumping back to this, what do we have? Finance. You know, say what you want. Right to the left of that says application layer. So is that symbol of the L basically representing the application layer? And more importantly, when we talk about distributed ledger technologies and the XRPL, as in the XRP ledger, is that the symbol for the ledger? Because when we get more into it, look at what it says next to it, supply chain. And believe it or not, I'll show you a citation here in a bit. Do you know that David Schwartz contributed to healthcare? Yeah, check this out. This gets really good because even here, look what he says. He, back from 1995 or 1992 to 95, was a partner in a thing called Cardiophonics. He was the co-founder of a medical device manufacturing company that developed and manufactured some of these things that contributed to that. That's really, really interesting. And then let's take it back to this smart grid. And look at the symbols about the smart grid. It's kind of a lightning bolt, is it not? Well, again, back to the logo. Because in that logo, what do we see? Kind of looks like somewhat of like an electricity bolt, does it not? Yeah, it definitely does. And look at this. It gets even better. What do you see on the second to far right on the application layer, smart grid. Interesting, because even back to the resume of David Schwartz, look what it shows here. His education. It gets better and better, everybody, if you're willing to listen. His education is the University of Houston, electrical engineering, 1986 to 1990. And what does it say in regards to like what he majored? Electrical engineering. My goodness, my God. So that is something else. That is really, really something else, in my opinion. And as I get more into this, let's jump back to ResearchGate, because we're talking about execution layers. Yeah, even the execution layers, right? And look what you see in the symbol in the green. It literally is the same thing. And then when we talk about some of these other things, the data layer, I mean, come on. Did David Schwartz tweet this for a reason? Well, I think the answer is yes, because even going to the data structure model from this data layer, what do you see on the right side? A lot of similar symbols. And of course, as we get further down into the whole thing, the network layer, peer-to-peer network. Interesting how it all comes together, because again, the last part, the abstraction of a DLT as a multi-layered system. Maybe that's what he wanted to have us all understand. And again, maybe we'll never get an answer, but it was all worth pointing out, and it was all worth bringing to each and every one of you guys, because again, when we look at the symbols, S16139, look at that. Think about it, for example. That looks like some kind of form of an electricity symbol. And if anything, the L could be for leisure, connected to finance. All of these symbols have meanings. Is that modern day version of Egyptian hieroglyphics? I'm not going to go that far. I definitely think that was worth pointing out to each and every single one of you. I mean, I know that's quite the deep dive, but that thing has been bothering me for a while in regards to that symbol, that cryptic tweet. So, as the saying goes, know what you have, know why you hold it. The research trumps FUD 110%, but nothing but respect for David Schwartz. Do me a favor, if you listen to the end of this outline and simply type in these two letters, and that is DS, as in David Schwartz, and I'll know that you listen to the entire outline. Thanks again for watching, everybody. May you all have a blessed rest of your day. We will see you on the next one. If managing your crypto feels like solving a puzzle, it's time to switch to Decent Wallet. Say goodbye to complicated setups and hello to Decent Wallet, the hassle-free solution to your digital currency needs. With just a few taps, you can manage, track, and secure your crypto with unmatched ease. And here's the best part. Grab your Decent Wallet at a discounted price by using the referral link below. Don't miss out on making your crypto experience smoother and more secure.